What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to Start Living. I have to remind myself that this channel is called Start Living, and I almost never call it Start Living, but welcome back. We're walking through Luke again. We are in Luke chapter 1, verses 5 through 7, and this is... Let's walk through Luke together. Put an exclamation point on that thing. So, let us get into it. This is the section that is called Birth of John the Baptist Foretold. And we're only doing 3 verses because this is the way this whole section is broken up. I feel like this would make the most sense just with these 3 verses. And plus, there's a lot to unpack. Trying to keep the time down. You guys know. So, in the days of Herod, king of Judea, there was a priest named Zacharias of the division of Abijah, and he had a wife from the daughters of Aaron, and her name was Elizabeth. They were both righteous in the sight of God, walking blamelessly in all the commandments and requirements of the Lord. But they had no child, because Elizabeth was barren, and they were both advanced in years. Remember, from a little recap of last time, this is Luke's letter to a man named Theophilus. Theophilus is a Roman official, a man of high stature. Luke is writing to Theophilus to reassure Theophilus of what he has previously been told. So, let's start in verse 5. In the days of Herod, king of Judea. In historical times, I guess I should say, oftentimes writers would give an account of what would happen, and they would date it by kind of this phrase: in the days of blank, king of blank reigned for this many years type deal. That's how they marked the time period. I'll just say time period. Sure, let's call it that. And Herod, king of Judea, he was appointed king in 40 BC, but he did not come to power until 37 BC, and his reign ended with his death in 4 BC. So the birth of John the Baptist and Jesus came just before Herod's death in 4 BC. Little background on Herod. Herod was not that guy. Herod was a piece of work. If you research and look through it, King Herod was politically paranoid. And you can see that in the Gospel of Matthew chapter 2. To understand the historical context of Luke's account and what's going on, you have to realize that God has been silent. I should write this down. At this time, God has been silent for 400 years. That's ugly, but yeah, so God has been silent for 400 years. And this is not a high point in Israel's history. This is not a time of religious zeal. Throughout time, God had spoken through Moses, Abraham, David, all the prophets, ending with the prophet ending with Malachi. Malachi was the last prophet that God spoke through. I'll just write his name. And that was it. Then nothing for 400 years. So this reign of Herod, during this reign of Herod, this was not a good time. Herod was not a good guy. This is a very low point, and people are turning away from God. King Herod was politically paranoid. He killed his favorite wife. He killed his sons, and he ordered the slaughter of babies in an attempt to kill Jesus. He killed anyone who he thought posed a threat to him. And again, you can see that kind of paranoia in the Gospel of Matthew chapter 2. Herod ruled ruthlessly for 33 years. So, I mean, this was not a short time span of bad ruling. And he was considered, I guess I should write this down, one of the cruelest rulers in history. Not a good guy. Very low point in Israel's history is going on at this time. There was a priest named Zacharias. Other translations say Zechariah. It's the same guy. It's just how the translators translated the name. Zacharias, Zechariah, still the same guy. And Zechariah, actually, that name means either Jehovah has remembered, or it can also be translated as, or known as, Yahweh has remembered. When it says, of the division of Abijah, Zechariah's division was number 8 out of 24 divisions, and these divisions would serve in the temple twice a year for 1 week at a time. And we can see that in First Chronicles 24, 1 through 9. And he had a wife from the daughters of Aaron, and her name was Elizabeth. Daughters of Aaron means that they were from the same priestly tribe. They were from priestly descent. Elizabeth was from priestly descent. And note, side note here, that's ugly. Side note, Luke wrote his gospel in the early or mid 60 ADs. Would you put up? It doesn't matter. You know what I mean. And so at the time that Luke is writing this account, John the Baptist, Zacharias, and Elizabeth had already passed on at this point. They had passed away at this point. So Luke would have gotten his information from extended family or close associates with the family, because extended family and close associates with the family would have known what had happened. Well, I guess we'll see, but what happened to them. You guys know what I mean, right? Right. Verse 6. They were both righteous in the sight of God, walking blamelessly in all the commandments and requirements of the Lord. When it says they were both righteous in the sight of God, this is a cross-reference to Genesis 7:1, where it says, I think I have it here, Then the Lord said to Noah, enter the ark, you and all your household, for you alone I have seen to be righteous before me in this time. It's the same concept, I guess. I don't know if that's the right word, but it's the same idea. They were both righteous in the sight of God. Actually, verses Genesis 7:1 is actually a cross-reference with Genesis 6:9 when it says, Noah was a righteous man, blameless in his time. Noah walked with God. And the MacArthur Study Bible states that they were both believers and were justified in God's sight, end quote. They trusted God. They were both righteous in the sight of God because they trusted God. Remember, this is a low point in Israel's history, and people are turning away from God. But Zacharias and Elizabeth are staying faithful and continue to trust God. When it says walking blamelessly in all the commandments and requirements of the Lord, blameless, the word blameless, this is the same blameless that Paul talks about in Philippians 2:15, when Paul says, so you will be blameless and innocent, children of God without blemish, in the midst of a crooked and perverse generation, among whom you shine as lights in the world. That's who Zacharias and Elizabeth were. Blameless in all the commandments and requirements of the Lord. Blameless. They had earned the right to be called blameless. Not, you know what I mean. Verse 7. But they had no child. Wait, hold on. I have one more note. For verse 6. Verse 6 note. This couple faithfully and continually obeyed God. They were an example of a spirit. I spelled that wrong. Spiritually commendable couple. That's who they were. Spiritually commendable couple. Verse 7. But they had no child because Elizabeth was barren, and they were both advanced in years. I have a quote from the Holman Apologetics Commentary on the Bible. If you don't have it, go get it. It's really good. And their comment on verse 7 says, the text is clear in verse 6 that both Zacharias and Elizabeth were righteous, so the lack of a child was not a sign of judgment, even though that's how barrenness was commonly viewed in that time. Elizabeth's bearing of John was like the births of Isaac, Samson, and Samuel, great men of the Old Testament, who were something special. Who were born from formerly barren women. Their births were signs that God was doing something special in order to advance his purpose. So, Elizabeth was barren. We're about to see in the next section that she becomes pregnant, and with John the Baptist, just like the heading says. John the Baptist. And I think this is really cool because I would have never thought of that quote. I would have never thought of John the Baptist's birth to be similar as Isaac, Samson's, and Samuel's, but they were all from barren women, and that's when God was about to do something big. So that's pretty cool, right? That's not something I thought about. But yeah, that's it. That's all I got. Hopefully you guys learned something. I know I did. I'm enjoying this study myself. This has been very, I guess, fruitful, you could say. But yeah, until next time, right?